This is the Best or Worst Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Koji Stefan Sakai and M. Martin Mapoma.
All right, folks. We are back. Episode number 96. We are back with Stefan Shakiba, psychologist extraordinaire, as I like to put it. And we are going to talk to him today about his best or worst moment. So you want to get right into it, Coach?
Sure, yes. Let's get into it.
All right. So what do you think, Koji? I want to put it on you this time.
Man.
This is the moment, Stefan, where we ask, do we want to hear your best moment or your worst moment? And usually, hope you have both prepared because Coach is about to make a big decision. It could be groundbreaking.
I want to hear your worst moment. Only because I feel like you're smiling. I feel very positive vibes from you. So I want to hear something not so positive from you.
Okay. Well, I think in the end, though, it's going to have a positive message because I think it's going to resonate with some people. I see it today with my patients on my mental health side. So, worst moment. So there isn't necessarily a worst moment. I would break it down to more a worst period of my time, and I think it's one that a lot of people can relate to, which would be in your early to mid 20s. And I think studies show they really validate what I've experienced anecdotally, which is, you're more likely to be single. You don't know who you are. You're getting to know yourself. You're growing emotionally, developmentally, even though you finished college. You don't know where you're going to be in the future 5 years from now. You may be exploring different careers. And I think during my 20s, I had a bunch of jobs. I kept going into sports, out of sports. I had some breakups that were very difficult breakups. And so mid to early 20s. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think the 20s are a super difficult time because you're still trying to discover who you are. I have a personal rule actually that you shouldn't be after your 20s, you're no longer experimenting with drugs. After 20s, you're actually just using drugs. But in the 20s is a time to experiment, to have fun, to figure out who you are, to really
Well, I was definitely a late bloomer then.
You should have the 20s is a time to have multiple jobs, I think, to have multiple girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever, to be able to kind of move to different places and to really figure yourself out, because that's the time that you really need to know.
Yeah, I definitely did that. My 20s were, they were anyway, they were crazy.
I mean, the 20s, again, they're very uncertain times. You're maybe in relationships, maybe not. You don't see your future. You don't know what it's going to look like, at least for a lot of us.
Yeah. But Steph, can you point to one particular moment in life that was and we typically like to stay away from a death in the family, which those things are typically horrible. But a moment, something that happened to you that you can access right away.
Mm-hmm.
That was I hate to use the word traumatic, but something that you come back to, and you maybe you've learned from it, and grown from it. That's kind of a little more of what we're because we all have one moment. I mean, I know I have very traumatic moments in my life, and I have one in particular that I shared early on in one of our first episodes. So I was thinking something like that,
Yeah, and it happened in my early to mid 20s during that time, and it's kind of what led up to this, and it's kind of the aftermath of this. And I think it was a breakup that I had.
Okay.
I had been dating somebody for about 2 years, and it wasn't the healthiest relationship, but I didn't know any better. I'm sensitive, and so people who are sensitive are more likely when you're younger to be codependent. And I remember when we broke up, I knew in the back of my mind it was for the best, but I wasn't able to make that decision. She did, and it felt like a form of abandonment. And I just remember feeling so crushed, couldn't get it off my head. The whole week afterwards was just a blur. It was ruminating, obsessing, compulsive thinking about what happened, about how we're never going to find anybody again. And I would say that was probably the most lonely I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
Other than being codependent, how was it an unhealthy relationship? I mean, you don't have to go into specific details, but anything like that comes up?
I want you to.
Yeah, no, we were young. We didn't know any better. We had a lot in common. We respected each other. But, she had her issues. She had some eating disorders. And I don't want to, I don't want to put it on her at all. She had some depression, and I think I did too in some ways. I think I was depressed and anxious because I was, again, in sports, out of sports. I didn't know where I was going to be. I think I moved back in with my parents, and it was kind of like, this is my life now. So I remember being crushed, and I couldn't get it off my chest. And, your diet goes down, at least your appetite, your sleep goes down, you isolate, and nothing can kind of bring you out of that except for time.
And so what did bring you out of that? Was it just time, or was it something else?
Well, time was the biggest one. Again, there's really nothing people can say to make things a lot better other than giving you emotional support. And I had support from good friends, and I think that went a long way. But I think what happened after that, which again sometimes happens, is I got into a rebound relationship, which helped distract me for a little bit. So I did that for about 6 months. And then after 6 months, it was kind of like that epiphany of, what are you doing? And that's when I really started making better, healthy lifestyle choices and started really caring for myself at that time.
That's good. That's good.
What would you? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Koji.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I can relate to that. I think that, it's funny because when it came to breakups, my whole, I don't know, it was, sorry, I'm thinking out loud because I'm listening to what he said, and because I'm a pretty sensitive person too. And in that regard, I can be very codependent, but I know for me, for a fact that when the majority of the breakups that I had, I can think of one where I thought I was devastated, and then actually going through therapy, and not because of that, but just other things, dealing with insecurities and things like that. I realized that my breakups weren't so much about me wanting to be with that person; they were more about me thinking to myself, "How could I not be the greatest thing in the world?" It was an ego thing. It wasn't about the actual relationship. I romanticized the idea of being in those relationships, but the actual relationships sucked. For the most part. And now, I would venture to say that with the exception of my wife today, who I love so much, all the others were, oh God. Anyway.
So what kind of advice would you give yourself from, if you were now talking to your 20-year-old self or 20s yourself, what would you tell yourself?
I wish I had gone to therapy, and I see a lot of people in my 20s. It's the exact same thing. And, everything's a competition, whether it's, finding a partner or getting a job, or whether you're in the car, waiting in lines. And it's a very, individual world. It's you against everybody else. And I wish I had that therapy, so I had that insight to kind of normalize, because again, I was very sensitive. And so we're more likely to be codependent. But, I stayed in the relationship for the wrong reasons. I stayed in the relationship because I was afraid of being alone and afraid of being unloved. But had I known that, I would have done more self-care to show myself that I love myself, have a better diet, have better exercise, to learn mindfulness, to be able to be grateful in the moment, even though things aren't ideal, and to be able to speak to yourself with love and self-esteem. So I wish I had gone back to therapy. I wasn't aware of that at the time, but now as a therapist, that is my advice: is if you're going through something, you don't have to do it by yourself. There is help out there.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's cool. And now look at you, happy, got an amazing wife, great kids.
Yeah, and none of us are perfect, and that's okay. And there's a psychologist here in LA too, who has this great quote, and that is, no matter what you're doing, whether you're going to public speak, whether you're going to go into something that's uncomfortable, it's the saying, I promise to love myself just as much after as I did before. And that's something that really stuck with me, and I tell myself that all the time.
What if you didn't love yourself before, though?
Well, I don't think I did.
So that'd be a tough statement to have.
Well,
but yeah,
you need to be able to forgive yourself and love yourself regardless, because we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
we deserve to treat ourselves well.
Would you say that a lot of relationships in the 20s, I mean, college and above, are codependent? Is that something that you would say is common?
I don't think I could answer that, because again, it could vary from state to state, area to area. Again, I think that's very conditional.
Too broad.
It's case specific. I don't know what the trends are overall.
Okay, interesting.
Huh.
Do you still think about that breakup, and does it does it affect you today in any way, or is it just something that is kind of played in the past and
Part of
no
your
longer?
past.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've always been the person who's kind of looked forward instead of looking past. And in some ways that's great because, you know, if something bad happened, I don't look back and I'm, you know, focused on the next opportunity. But I think it's important sometimes to reflect back because it makes you appreciate and have a lot more gratitude for what you have now. And recognizing all those failed relationships, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this, it makes you appreciate what you have now. And there's another saying, which is, remember when you wanted everything you have now.
Yeah. You know, I don't, you know, if I could go back in time and talk to myself or change anything, I always tell my wife that I wouldn't change anything because I feel like the path that I chose, the steps that I took got me to where I am now, got me to meet her and to have my son who I love more than I would murder the world for my kid. And I really feel that if I changed certain things in my life, or taking different paths, he never would have, you know, he would never would have been here. And I really feel like this kid was meant to be on this earth. So that's the mindset that I come from, that, you know, all the failed relationships and, you know, bad, you know, career decisions and moves that I made, you know, led me to where I am with him. Now, the 8 years since he's been born is another story. You know, it's, but yeah. You know, I love that question, Coach. When you know, if you go back into your 20s and give yourself some advice, that's someone that I always think about all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I
Well,
think
you
about
know,
that a lot.
one of the things I
relate-
tell my, never mind. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to finish real quickly.
Okay.
No, I was going to say that for me, the advice I would give myself when I was 21 was that I would have told myself, don't listen to all this other, you know, all this shit that you hear, you know, when you're in school. You are the shit. You know, you are the man. You deserve only the best. Because, you know, coming from Africa and, you know, going to school where I went to school in Kentucky, man, if you had any bit of low self-esteem, that was just hammered home in the mid 80s or early to mid 80s when you're, you know, an African kid living in Kentucky. And I don't mean to harp on it, but, you know, looking back on it, man, it was significant. And I always felt like I didn't deserve better. But I realize now that was not the case. So that's what I would say to myself. I said, hey, you know what, Martin, you're the shit. You deserve the best. So,
And you know, what you say is what I do with my clinical patients is oftentimes when there's trauma or some period in their life like this, depression, we do shadow work where they go back and meet that person and talk to them. And it's probably one of the most emotional, feeling provoking times I have working with my patients.
Yeah.
So,
I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say, I think it has a lot to do with perspective. You know, when I talk to my students, 'cause I teach as well, and when I talk to my students about my writing, you know, I think back to when I was at USC, and if I told myself back then what I've accomplished so far in my career, I know my 21-year-old self would have been this, like, you have a dream life, you have a dream career, you know. But if you ask me now if I have my dream career, I would say no. I mean, I have a lot I still want to accomplish, and a lot I still want to do. And it helps me have perspective, not just about the past, but about the present. In that, yeah, like I've done everything I thought I could accomplish when I was 21. I've already done it. And so I got to go easy on myself. I haven't achieved exactly what I wanted yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not blessed or I shouldn't be excited and thrilled about where I am in my career, you know? So I think a lot of times it's just about perspective, like you're talking about with the girlfriend. It's like, you think this is it, like this really, like now I can't be with anybody forever, right? And I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, and my life is going to be terrible, and I'm not going to have children, and I'm not going to have grandchildren, and I'm going to be sad and alone when I'm, you know, like, I mean, you might not think exactly those
so
thoughts,
it's not just, no, I've thought all of those thoughts almost in that order too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you feel like you don't deserve any better. You're like, this is never going to happen.
So
God forbid
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So how do you have perspective? Like when you think about your life, or when you talk to people, how do you teach perspective on things? How do you teach people to think about that?
So one of the biggest things that we know that we're seeing with all three of us here, and I see this with my patients too, is how your outlook is towards your future. You know, people, one of the big red flags of depression is that they feel hopeless about their future. It's even one of the criteria for the symptoms. But if you feel optimistic about your future, you're going to probably you're going to enjoy the process a lot more. And a lot of that has to do with trusting yourself, getting to know yourself really well and saying, you know what, I am good enough. I'm going to be okay. But, you know, after a breakup, telling yourself, which I did too, I'm never going to meet anybody again. This is my life. I'm going to be alone. I hear that over and over and over again. And you just have to normalize it.
Yeah, that's why I think soulmates and all that stuff is the worst thing that people could think, is that there's only one person for you.
Wait, there's more?
Yeah,
I like that idea.
And if you don't meet your soulmate, or if you have your soulmate already and you ruin it, then it's completely over and you have no future. But in reality, like, that's a silly notion, right? And
you're dooming the relationship with really high expectations like that.
Yeah, you are.
You know, and when I think about relationships, and to bring it back to sports from the last episode, so much about relationships is where you are personally, and where, like, in the situation you find yourself in. Like, if you're in a healthier place, in a healthy situation in other parts of your life, your relationship will probably be more healthy, right? But if you're kind of in a jacked up place and not ready for something, or not in the right frame of mind, then it's going to mess up your relationship. Just like in sports.
Yeah.
You know, like Christian Wood is a great example on the Detroit Pistons, or he was going from team to team. Nobody wanted him. He was, like, basically about to leave the league. And then he got into the right situation where he got some playing time, got some people to believe in him. He started playing well. And all of a sudden he looks like an all-star now. And it's just, you know, it's just about being in the right place. He had the talent. And I think in the same way for relationships, it's like, yeah, in this one situation, you have the ability to be better, right?
Yeah.
And I like to say there's no such thing as overachieving. All that is reaching your potential. And again, sometimes we need a little help to get there.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
Yeah, we do.
What piece of advice do you give people in the 20s? Well, like, if not as a therapist, but more as a human being, what would you tell somebody in their 20s to get them to get through that time?
Shakiba-isms.
I don't think there is a thing you could tell across the board to people in their 20s, other than educating them about the reality of things. Because people in their 20s report the most unhappiest times in their lives. And that's because, again, they're working towards the jobs, they're working towards a career and relationships. They may not have a lot of that. And then people in their 30s tend to, you know, maybe they're already in a relationship. Maybe they already have a house. Maybe they're already in a job. And then in your 40s, you're secure with your work, probably a relationship with where you are. Maybe you have kids, and you now have some disposable income. 50s, it gets even better, and then 60s get better. So I think for a lot of people in their 20s, just preparing them and letting them know that the 20s are probably going to be the hardest in their lives sometimes provides them a little comfort knowing that it tends to get better over the decades.
Definitely.
That's cool. Well, that's cool.
That was awesome.
Well, yeah, it was. Steph, man, so glad to have you on, dude. That was really cool.
I mean, the stuff we're talking about, I do every day, all day, and so it's
Sorry to bring you back to those to have you working on this podcast. but we definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast and helping us figure out some stuff, and also telling us.
Yeah, but real quickly, Steph, can you talk a little bit about your book real quickly? Because I think Coach like to hear that too.
Sure. No, I wrote a little book. It's called The Art of SPET, SPET, Sports Performance Enhancement Training. You know, it just kind of is a basic book for that coaches can use for their athletes to kind of learn different tools and in what order to apply them. So if they have an athlete, you know, to deal with stress, to prepare them for situations they've never handled yet, and so forth. So it's a basic book. You know, there's a lot more stuff that I do with athletes that I did not put in there because I did not want to write a 600-page book. But it's an easy read. It's 145 pages. It's a systematic step-by-step.
It's a great book, Koji.
And can you get it on Amazon? Is it available on Amazon, or where is it available?
It's only available on Amazon. Again, the Art of SPET.
Do you have a copy of it there?
You know, I don't have it on me. I have a bunch in my car.
I was gonna say you should
I'll definitely put a link in the show notes so people could just click on the link to get.
Yeah, it's a great book. If you're a coach, and if you're a coach, or you know, you coach children even, or you know, you work with kids who play sports, Koji, like your kid, you know, it's a good book. It's really good.
I don't coach anymore, so
you coach your son?
Not anymore. Well, I coach my son, but I don't coach the teams anymore.
So, Steph, this is great. So, Koji is like the ultimate dad. Every time I talk with Koji, I lead the conversation thinking of myself as a horrible parent. But no, it's crazy. No, and I say that as a compliment because his kid runs a he runs a 5K now and what
every
Koji?
Day. Under 30.
Under 30 minutes, he runs a 5K every day. This kid can hit a baseball and then it's in jiu-jitsu. It's crazy. I love that phrase. I want to hear him say that phrase one day, Coach. That fuck it.
And actually, one of the things I do, I don't know if it's helpful. Maybe I would definitely read your book. But I play on our run. I play motivational videos for him that talk about being a champion, talk about not giving up, and going for what you believe in, and those kinds of things. Because it inspires. I mean, it also inspires me when I'm running or working out, just to hear somebody saying that you're powerful, you could do whatever you put your mind to. And that, like a lot of times if there are haters out there, that you just have to like go for what you believe and what you want. And there's no failure, and it's about getting up and stuff like that. So
see that? I'm a horrible parent. I don't do any of that for my kid. Although, I think I don't know what Steph's gonna say, but I think that's a great idea. Well, first of all, are you playing this while he's running?
While we're running together, yeah. I play on my phone. Out
loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people look at us like, why are they listening to like some weird somebody like yelling? Right? They're not yelling, but like saying, "You're a champion! You're a champion!"
I want to see that. Oh, that's so cool.
But like I think like to me, like sports is about, especially for kids, it's about learning the skills that you're going to learn for the future. So one of the things that one of the best motivational videos that we listen to, he has this phrase where you can't, like he said, you can't be a champion until you've been beaten, because a champion who wins all the time it's easy to continue winning. It's easy that you've never had any adversity, but he said a real champion is the one who gets knocked down and loses maybe once or twice and then comes back to win again. He's like, that's the champion.
What about Floyd Mayweather, though?
Well, he's always
not necessarily a huge fan of his as a person, but man, he's definitely a champion. Never lost.
But like that, like this idea of like that, that it's okay to lose. The losing is a part of the whole process, And even like in jiu-jitsu with my kid, it was like he was losing a tournament, and like it gave him something to work toward. Right. It gave us that thing to have like that I think is an important look. Like I even tell him in life, people aren't going to just give you stuff, and you're not just going to win stuff because you show up, but you need to work for it. And if you work hard enough and try, you might be able to win if you keep working.
That leads me to one more question for you, Steph. How do you feel about participation trophies? Because I look at those things and I'm like, what?
I like participation trophies. I have nothing against them. I don't think it softens the kid. I don't think it makes them any harder. I think that's a little overrated topic there. Going back to Koji though, I wanted to say something about this, because we have a saying in sports psychology: failure is a growth mindset. Without failure, you wouldn't know how to improve yourself. And you need failure to grow from it, because that is the glaring loophole that you might have to make yourself better. If LeBron James was weak going to the left side, he would have to have some failures to say, hey, I need to make this stronger. And through that awareness, they can work on that to then get rid of it. Yeah. Just like the breakup I had, failure is a growth mindset. I've learned a lot from it. Yeah. And so whether it's life or sports, failing is okay. And again, telling yourself, I promise to love myself just as much after as I did before. And when you fall on your horse, you get back on and you ride harder than you have before.
And that's what I love about sports, is that it's an easy way to learn these lessons without really ruining you can't ruin your life playing sports.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you lose a game, it's not the end of the world, but it's a good way to understand that, okay, if you want to win, what are the things we have to do to become a winner, right? Or to win the next game, and like, how do we practice differently? How do we look? I remember for my son's jiu-jitsu, for example, I'd take video of him at practice, and he's messing around and he's not serious. And you can tell by the way he stands in the fight. And then I take pictures of him during the tournament, and I'm like, look, you're not practicing like you're fighting. You're practicing like you're just messing around. And then, like him seeing and understanding that if he wants to win, he has to have that mindset, and that learning through the process of failure. I don't mind participation trophies, but I do think losing is okay. I think losing is a skill that people need to learn, and how to be a good loser, how to come back from losing, and that it's okay to lose, because you're right. Like, like I'm a writer, so 99% of what I do is a failure, and that I have to be okay with that, or else I'm in the wrong business.
But I think you should clarify that though, real quickly. Not the writing itself isn't the failure; it's getting it published, right? Or like.
Yeah. Like, I mean, most of the things I work on will never be seen by anybody except for me.
Yeah.
I
just wanted to clarify that for everybody.
Yeah, but I think in that mind frame is very important, because if everything is, if I get taken down every time somebody says no to me, I will be sad all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important. But anyway, how can people also, like, can people follow you? Do you do social media, or do you not do social media?
Yeah, the only social media I do right now is LinkedIn. I have a lot of people following me, so it's pretty good. I'm not the best at posting, especially during the COVID and quarantine, because my business has picked up and it's been a little harder to find things. But, I'll drop information that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else, especially if you go back further. But the stuff I put up now might be a little more simpler, basic. Like, for example, when you exhale, you want to exhale slowly, because that's when the heart rate's more likely to go up. So little tips like that. There might be something on the amygdala, which is the source of fear, anger, and anxiety, and how that gets in the way in sports. So again, it's like a hodgepodge of little tips here and there.
The amygdala.
The amygdala. It is
the amygdala.
Okay. The amygdala hijack is the source of fear, anger, and anxiety. I'm not going to bore you guys with it, but I think that's one of the things. A lot of baseball scouts ask me, "Hey, how can we, measure somebody's mental preparedness?" And secretly, I think the amygdala is one of the ways you can really judge how someone is going to perform on the field.
Really?
Stressful situations.
How do you measure the amygdala?
That is the challenge.
I know the coach is going to use it with this kid.
You can use an fMRI machine, but if you're going to do it, on a recruit, I don't think they're going to let you do that. So I think there's ways you can tell, but that's something I'm working on right now.
Oh, I'm dying to know, right? I think that's cool. I use it on my kid too.
Well, that's also like, in sports, I mean, like in the biggest moments, that's when when you can tell about a player, right? That are they the kind of player that gets better when pressure happens, or are they the kind of player that falls apart when there's a lot of pressure? And that's another reason, like, even youth sports is great, because it helps put kids in a safe place where there's fear of some kind, and they have to either perform or not. And then, part of it, I feel like part of my job as a parent is to help them talk through that and help them come back to it, because I think that's like the thing that you're going to do in life, right? You're going to have failures, and how do you come back? How do you learn from it? How do you grow? How do you do it again next time better?
Yeah.
This is awesome. Yeah. I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn. I don't think we're LinkedIn friends yet, but I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn, because I think I want to hear some of these great pieces of advice.
Me too.
So everybody, please rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. And thank you guys. And we really appreciate everybody.
Thank you so much. And Steph, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, buddy. I love this dude. Hey, I got some hot peppers for you, Steph. You ever want to stop by and pick them up? Seriously, I have a whole bunch.
Let me know when.
All right.
Yeah, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And, Coach, man, you should have got the guy code.
Yeah, I would actually love you on the Guy Code. So I have another podcast that I do life advice for my son on a podcast. I'll reach out to you for that. But thank you guys. Bye, guys.